What I'm about to tell you is something only my parents know, though if you asked them, they would deny it. Their denial was not of ill intention, but rather ignorance and the inability to trust the words of their child. A part of me resents this fact, but I've decided not to let it hold me back from telling this story. I was raised in a small town religious compound, fondly named the Goodwill community. My grandparents had joined the commune during their emigration from my home country and raised my parents in Goodwill. There were a few old rules, such as the allowance of only one outfit to teach humility, the back-breaking labour involved in attempting to achieve self-sufficiency, which was said to build character, and the education that was used to drum up zealous faith, by reiterating time and time again how special the church and its members were. This all sucked, and even as a child that knew nothing better, I still made the connection that things weren't always equal. The top members had more than one outfit, and would never partake in labour-intensive activities. However, this was not the issue, and pales in comparison to what they called a send-off. A send-off was usually only reserved for those over 60, or whomever Goodwill decided had earned enough merit. A few years before my family was told to leave, they had started a raffle for those lucky ones ready to move on. Well, my grandfather didn't need to enter a raffle. At the ripe age of 63, he was notified of his send-off. I remember the day. I was halfway through class when a man in a dark robe came and spoke to my teacher. Her smile continued to grow bigger and bigger as the man spoke to her. It became so large and intense when I picture it now, I imagine her lips ripping apart from the tension. When the man finished speaking and left the classroom, my teacher turned to face the class. All of our little eyes trained on her, hoping she would satisfy our curiosity. Without acknowledging the class, she came over to me and smiled once again. She told me my grandfather had been blessed with a send-off. I knew enough to understand she was telling me I'd never see my grandfather again. My mother picked me up from class and we walked home to see him before it was time to go. I'd been told more times than I can count that this was a happy time, something to aspire to obtain. But my mother's red puffy eyes and absent-minded replies told me something different. "Where is Grandpa going?" I asked. "To a better place, Pumpkin." "Will we see him again?" "When the time is right." "Do we have to be old to see him?" "I guess so." I could see my questions bothered her, so I walked in silence as we neared our house. Two men in cloaks stood either side of our front door and opened it for us. There was no exchange of words as we passed. I looked up to one of the men, but he continued staring forward. One detail I can never shake is how much the man was sweating. It was midway through winter, but he was drenched, the armpits of his cloak stained with damp patches. My father was at the door. He gave us both a hug. My mother took a while to let go, but once she had, I followed her into the dining room. What surprised me the most was how upset everyone looked. I had spent my entire life believing this was an honor, but now that it had fallen upon us, it didn't feel that way at all. Our final dinner revolved around tears and prayer. I was made to give my final goodbyes and go to bed. I remember laying there, my fist clenched by my side. First I was angry with my family, and then with Goodwill. Why had they told me how great the opportunity of being sent off was if they didn't mean it? Why did Goodwill have to take my grandpa? The image of my teacher's wide smile flashed through my mind and I almost screamed in anger. My stubborn kid brain told me the best thing to do was follow Grandpa and find out who was telling the truth. My bedroom window faced out onto the street. Peering through the curtains, I could see the send-off was beginning. Flames flickered off torches, lit by men in robes, waiting out the front of our door. 3 more flames ignited. Grandpa wasn't the only one on our street to be sent off. I crept out of the room, making sure to close the door behind me, and exited into the backyard. No fences were barring my way. The compound had loose streets between makeshift houses. Sneaking between them, I watched the robed figures walk in a column, only stopping momentarily to add another lucky soul into their ranks. The family would say their goodbyes between sobs and the column would continue moving forward to claim whoever else was waiting. Eventually the men in dark robes led the group further out of the community housing, past the church sitting on the hill, and into an open field. With nothing left to hide behind, I kept my distance and followed the torches. They continued walking out in the open, before pausing to extinguish their flames. All vision was gone. I moved slowly toward the position, but the field was seemingly empty. I picked up a torch they had left behind and inspected it. The only confirmation that I had not imagined their disappearance was the smoke smoldering from it. When I dropped the torch, the sound of it hitting the ground sounded odd, like wood hitting against wood. Feeling the ground blindly, I found a metal handle and lifted the door upward as slowly as I could. Looking through the gap, there was only darkness, and for a moment, the reality of the situation set in. The fear and panic of the punishment I'd receive if I was caught told me to turn around and run, and I almost did, until a scream of pain and a flash of blue light lit up the corridor in front of me. I had to see what they were doing to him. I stepped down and closed the door, sealing myself inside. When I reached the end of the corridor, there was another scream and a flash of light. The light momentarily revealed my surroundings. They were pews filled with the dark-cloaked people. Within seconds of seeing the light, something strange happened. It feels impossible to describe, but the feeling of pure happiness, the sensation of complete euphoria came over me, and I truly believe I felt what heaven was. The feeling faded in mere seconds, until a voice yelled, "Again!" and another scream was heard, followed by the light. The feeling washed over me again. This feeling was something that I spent the majority of my life after trying to recreate. I never could, no matter what drug I used. The feeling was not of this world. Suddenly I felt a hand grasp my arm and turn me around. It was one of the cloaks. His smile was the same as my teacher's, and his pupils the size of dinner plates. Attempting to get away, I staggered forward, but he yanked me back. I felt a thud on the side of my head before it was lights out. By the time I had woken up, my family was already in the car halfway off the compound. We had been exiled from the community. My parents never believed in my story. They believed that I had snuck into a ceremony and disrespected the church badly enough to warrant being removed. I still don't know what they did to my grandpa, though I've tried looking into it on and off during my more sober years. But Goodwill doesn't seem to exist anymore. My parents no longer speak with me because of my habits, so I'm unable to confirm if it's really the name, or I've been chasing the dragon so long my brain is melted. In any case, I just wanted to share this with you all. I just need someone to believe me.